All right, so again, we're doing the second half of Chapter 7, Section 5, which is parts of similar triangles. This particular video is going to focus entirely on the rule that is currently on the screen, which is called the single triangle proportion rule for an angle bisector. In words, what this says is that when we have an angle bisector in a triangle, it separates the opposite side from that angle into two segments that are actually proportional to the two remaining sides. So what I'm saying here is that this angle bisector, JM, is breaking KL into two pieces, KM and ML, okay? What I'm saying is that the proportion KM over ML is equal to the two remaining pieces, the two remaining sides of that triangle, JK and JL. JK would go on top and JL would go on the bottom. Okay, notice that since this piece went on top, the side it's connected to goes on top in the other fraction. Okay, so this is our proportion here. KM is to ML as JK is to JL. And that is true every single time that we have an angle bisector in a triangle. So, we're going to do some examples of this. It's a nice short half lesson here. Anybody need more time before we advance? Okay. So here's our first example. We're asked to find the value of x. Now there is some slight trickery built into this problem, okay? Because it is not exactly set up like that example. We do not actually have a measurement here for the length of ST, so we have to use our brains. If the entire side length is 18 and the length of TQ is x, what is the length of TS? Type it in the chat. What is the length of TS? If the entire side length is 18 and the distance from Q to T is x. Very good. Okay. So this section here, TS, would be 18 minus x meters. Okay, so that's the first thing we have to do is we have to recognize that we need to know the length of that piece in terms of x. Because our proportion is going to involve those two pieces, QT over TS, being equal to the two remaining sides, QR over SR. Okay? Our proportion is going to be QT over TS, which is what we just found there, which is what we had to find, 18 minus x, equals QR over SR, 14. So we plug in those numbers when we have their x is to 18 minus x as 6 is to 14. And once the setup's done, the rest of it is just solving a proportion. So it's pretty simple from this point forward. We've done 100 of these by now in this chapter. We cross multiply. So we have 6 times 18 minus x equals 14x. And then we solve that. So to solve that, we would need to distribute. 6 times 18 is 108. Minus 6x equals 14x. Better check and make sure my sleep-deprived brain did not screw that up. It did not. Very good. Then add 6x to each side. Which would give us 108 equals 20x. and then divide by 20, which is not going to be an even number. Okay, that gives us that x is 27/5 or 5.4. Okay, I would prefer the fractional answer here because, again, there's no decimal anywhere in the problem, which means we should not be giving a decimal answer. Okay? Now, in the chat, please, make sure you're all still paying attention to me. Please tell me the length of TS. The length of TS. Type the length of TS into the chat. The length of TS. All right, so some of us are going straight to the decimal, which I guess is okay, but not great. I'd prefer the fraction again. Good. 63/5 or 12.6. Good. So again, once we have x, we could take that x and we could plug it in to find these lengths. Okay, so good job. 63/5, which is equivalent to 12.6 meters. Okay. And again, I really would be fine with either answer there. I'd prefer the fraction, but again, if you're talking to somebody about a length, you're probably not going to use a fraction in conversation. So 12.6 meters is perfectly fine. Okay? All right, let's try another one. Again, if you need more time on any of these slides at the end, I'm happy to put them back up. So, take a second, get out ahead of me here, set up this proportion. Okay, set up this proportion, get out ahead of me. I'm going to give you about a 15 to 20 second head start before I start into the problem. Triangle's been rotated a little bit, so we got to use some thinking skills here. Remember, the two pieces that that side is broken into are going to be one of our fractions. So Vy over Yw equals, and then the other fraction is going to be made up of the two remaining sides, Vu and Wu. All right. So we had the pieces, Vy over Yw, are equal to the side lengths, Vu over Wu. Again, notice that the piece in this side share point V, so both of the pieces with V are on top. And actually that W really should be blue, shouldn't it? That should be blue. There we go. Okay, so we go in and we plug in our side lengths. We've got 4 over 6 equals x over 13. And from there, it's just cross multiplying and solving for x. Okay, cross multiplying and solving for x. So we take those values and we cross multiply. 6 times x is 6x. 4 times 13 is 52. Then we divide both sides by 6. 52 is not divisible by 6, which means our answer again is going to be a partial number, a fraction. So 26/3, which is a lot cleaner than the decimal approximation. I guess it's not really an approximation. 8.6 repeating. Okay, so 26/3 is a lot cleaner. That's why we'd rather have the fraction. Okay, 26/3 is a lot cleaner answer than 8.66666666666666666666, etc. Okay, the fraction is just a better answer here because we don't have to round it off. So the fraction is exact. Okay, the fraction is exact. The decimal is not exact. We'd have to round it off, which is not a good thing. Okay, we don't want to round our answer. We want to give an exact answer. Okay, I think there's one more example. Any questions before we advance to the final example of the day? Very good. Okay. All right. So I would like you to solve this problem and put your answer in the chat. What does x equal? I'm going to give you about 45 seconds, then I'm going to start to set the problem up so that if you're stuck, you can get unstuck and stay ahead of me, okay? Don't just take somebody else's answer from chat. Find it yourself. So again, work your way through this problem. Solve for x. Solve for x. If you're stuck on the setup, remember that if the entire length of AC is 20 units and CD is x units, then AD is 20 minus x units. So hopefully that'll unstick those of you that are staring at it. Okay, so the next would be to set up the proportion. Again, the pieces, AD and DC, make up one of my fractions. And that's two different pieces. You've got basically the left piece and the right piece. And then on the other side, we set up the remaining side lengths, which are AB and BC. Plug in your numbers. So that would be the proportion 20 minus x over x equals 11 over 14. A lot of good answers going into the chat. I'd like to see it. Let's cross multiply. 11 times x is equal to 14 times the quantity 20 minus x. Again, there's another place where it's a very common mistake. Remember that I don't want you to distribute until after you cross multiply. Don't try to do it all at one time or you're going to forget. Okay, solve that equation, get an answer into the chat. I've only got about 5 answers in the chat so far. 6 answers in the chat so far. So we distribute. That would give us 11x equals 14 times 20, which would be 280 minus 14x. Good. Now we're starting to see some numbers appearing in there. Very good. Then we add that 14x to each side, which would give us 25x equals 280. Finish solving, we divide by 25. That does not divide evenly. So x is 56/5, which is equivalent to 11.2. Okay, again, we could be asked for a side length after that. So you need to be paying attention to, did they ask me for the variable or did they ask me for a length? Either way, you're going to have to find the value of the variable first. But then after you find the value of the variable, you should be able to set up and plug it back in to find whatever length you're asked about. Okay? So that's it for the notes.